Hong Kong has changed so much over the past few decades, mainly due to places that are being turned into business districts, and also the matter of population growth. But more than 30 years ago, Hong Kong never looks like what it is today. But are there still elements that keep what is the old Hong Kong? Well, in this documentary, that's what we're gonna find out today. To see if Hong Kong still keeps these very old cultural elements that will resemble the city's past. When it comes to thinking about the old Hong Kong, we tend to see it through its culture. Hong Kong's culture is very diverse. It can represent anything, such as the neon lights, old buildings and structures, and the old stalls, which should show a classical resemblance towards Hong Kong, as it is currently a glamorous city. However, these traditions are slowly dying as there's lots of progress of development going along the years. Meet Lindsay Varte from Sunset Survivors, who researched and visited these different stalls around Hong Kong, and then authored her findings into a book called Sunset Survivors.
I think it's the little things that make Hong Kong special. I think old industries, that's just one aspect of Hong Kong culture. You know, these kind of people, you walk outside the street in Central and, you know, you're in the most modern area, you're in the CBD of Hong Kong, and yet outside the MTR there's a shoe shiner, you know, and then there's also people making stamps.
How long have you been doing this?
8
years, okay.
But I student in here. I'm 5 years old in history.
5 years.
Now is
40. 40 years doing this?
yeah.
Wow.
Because my father is
you took over from your dad?
yes.
In Sheungwan, there are several stalls filled with hand carvers for traditional Chinese-style chops that are mainly used for stamps. I stopped by one to see what it was like to work in these stalls. Meet the owner of Kingstone Engraving and Printing, for he's been working at the same stall for 8 years, but the business has been going on for 40 years. And he was nice enough to show a demonstration of what he can do. Although being a very small business, the shop owner is very skilled on what he does. From hand carving general stones to lions, and recreating zodiac podiums representing each of the zodiac animals, to chops, which is currently what he's demonstrating towards for us right now. Based on the filming time, it usually takes about 20 minutes for him to create the stamp. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of accuracy to make sure that he gets each of the traditional symbols correctly to resemble the traditional Chinese culture when using it for postal services and business letters locally or globally. Ooh. And voila! He's finished. And right now, he's going to test his hand-carved stamp chop and test it on a piece of paper as a traditional stamp.
This also is my drawing.
Okay, yeah.
Design.
Yeah, it's very intricate,
Yeah.
very skilled.
Another, this is my new design.
Oh, that's your new one.
Yeah.
Because when I was young, my parents wanted me to get to know the real Hong Kong. So they took me to wet markets, they took me to Dai Pai Dong, they took me to all these kind of shops to sort of get to know what for them was a more authentic Hong Kong and to have that authentically Hong Kong upbringing. And as I got older, I noticed more and more of these, you know, street side stalls, particularly, you know, the street side shoe cobblers and the barbers and things like this. I noticed them disappearing. So it was really taking people to visit some of the shops which I already knew had disappeared, or some of the people that I recognized as still having been there for a really long time. But finding the new ones, you could find some of them online, people had written things about them, but I play rugby, and my rugby team is predominantly local Chinese girls, and they actually introduced me to a lot more industries that I didn't know about either. And in fact, some of the people in the book are related to my rugby teammates.
In the other side of the harbour, I came across a hand-carving mahjong tile shop, and the business was going pretty well, as there were a lot of citizens that wanted to play mahjong with these hand-carved tiles. This mahjong place has been around for years, and is still being hand-carved today by my sister May. But unfortunately in the clip, she is currently not at work, but we can still admire her amazing craftsmanship by the different mahjong tiles that she made over the past decades. Also in the other side of the harbour in Yamate is a shop that resembles handwriting the red minibus signs. The red minibus signs have been around for a very long time and been serving the public since the 70s. And this shop in Jordan still resembles one of the last ever minibus sign writers in Hong Kong, since nowadays most of the minibus destination boards are now electronic. But unfortunately he didn't make it in the office either. But once again, we are still able to admire his work that he's done over the past few decades.
But the one that I normally take people to is Yamate. I think that Yamate really encapsulates Hong Kong in a really interesting way. I think it's got old, it's got new, it's got modern, traditional, it's got a little bit of everything, and I think that's like sort of gritty side of Hong Kong that's a bit more interesting, and people can get to know the real Hong Kong and the authentic Hong Kong in that area very well.
And in Yamate holds one of the oldest stencil maker shops in Hong Kong, serving for 80 years, creating Chinese-styled scales and pans for the public.
你喺度做咗幾耐啊？我啊，我由細做到大咯。由細自細叫我爸爸做
Once again, her business is serving really well, as members of the public are also willing to buy some of these old-style products, which has led them for the business to keep continuing on to earn more money.
If they were to disappear completely, I think Hong Kong becomes more globalized and more sort of like a generic, you know, the world-class city, which is fantastic, but it loses elements of its charm, it loses elements of its character, which I think contribute to its cultural identity really well. When they disappear, it would be a very different place, I think, in that regard, but there's also elements of Hong Kong culture which I think will persist and I think will continue. You know, Hong Kong culture is so much more than just these old industries. I think Hong Kong culture is handing over your business card with two hands. It's not having a fourth floor in hotel buildings because people are superstitious, you know. It's the taxis, the buses, the cab ride, the crazy cab drivers, you know, it's all sorts of things. And I think that will last longer. If all this old industry disappeared, every part of the city would feel like anywhere in the world. I think it's these small old shops and these people that continue to run these old shops that really give Hong Kong its unique character. I think it would be a shame to lose them.
So in conclusion, it's still amazing to see how these small businesses have been going around for decades. But the truth is, the sad part is that these shops, one day, they'll have to go and be replaced with a new business for new development. And it'll be hard to see what life was like in the past without these old shops. So overall, Hong Kong is still a very glamorous city, and its cultural identity is super important to bring up how Hong Kong became what it is today.